Hello everybody and welcome once again to SFF180. I'm TMW and this is Mailbag Monday for the 25th of August 2014. And yes, I know this one is going up a day late. I apologize for that. I spent pretty much all of yesterday driving back home from my parents' hometown. I was visiting my parents, visiting my dad, and that is like a 6-hour drive, so it's a pretty serious trek on a day which I guess decided that it was going to be the single hottest day I've experienced all summer down here in Texas. I mean, it was like consistently 102, 103 Fahrenheit coming all the way down. And so when I got home, I was like, well, yeah, I think I'll take a little bitty nap. And then 7 hours later, I'm like, great, okay. So, but I'm here now, and so let's go ahead and get back on track. I hope all of you had a very lovely weekend. Last week's mailbag looks like it's, you know, back to things being rather average, fairly typical. So let's go ahead and knock these out and see what my lovely, lovely publicists have sent this time, shall we? Okay, this comes from Random House. Okay, James DASHNER fans, this is his new book, The Rule of Thoughts. This is the second book in a series that began with one called The Eye of Minds, which I was actually not sent, so I'm going to have to send an email about that. But anyway, let's have a quick look and see what this is about. Of course, DASHNER, as you know, wrote The Maze Runner and that trilogy, first book of which is about to be a movie. So let's see what he's doing this time. Okay, so this is like spoiler heavy here in the description, so I'll try to skirt around a lot of that. But apparently the series is called The Mortality Doctrine. It's something else, again, based on games and gaming. And the whole idea is to, the Mortality Doctrine will populate Earth entirely with human bodies harboring tangent minds. And the tangent apparently is a computer program that has become sentient. So I guess that is the goal. Any gamer who sinks into the VertNet risks coming out with a tangent intelligence and control of their body. Okay, so having a tangent mind is a bad thing, and the takeover has already begun. So, you know, beware the cyber hive mind thing. Here we go. The Rule of Thoughts, the sequel to The Eye of Minds from James DASHNER. Young adult fantasy. No, SF. Derp. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, can you blame me? There's a lot more young adult fantasy out there than SF. What is this, a little chunky package here? From Pan Macmillan. It looks like it has a couple of things in it. Okay, so this was an envelope featuring 3 new trade paperbacks from Tor. The first of these is a reprint of Stephen Gould's Jumper. Now, as you know, this was a movie a few years back, the first book in a series, and a few weeks ago I had the most recent book in the series as an arc, showcased here on the Mailbag, a book called Exo. But this is Jumper in a new trade paperback. And this is a book from a writer called Susan Polwick. I've read at least one of her books. This one's called Mending the Moon. And apparently it is, let's see, Melinda Soto, aged 64, vacationing in Mexico, is murdered by a fellow American tourist, a young man who commits suicide just days later. She leaves behind her adopted son Jeremy and a circle of friends, Veronique the academic, Rosemary, who is dealing with her husband's progressing Alzheimer's, and Henrietta, the priest at Rosemary and Melinda's church. Jeremy had a fraught relationship with his charismatic mother and the people in her orbit. Now her death is tearing him apart, and the friendships in Melinda's circle are fraying in the wake of their devastating loss. When the murderer's mother invites them all to Seattle for her son's memorial service, they see in the gesture a chance to begin healing. They will also be aided in peculiar ways by Jeremy's years-long obsession with the comic book hero Comrade Cosmos and the immense cult of online commentary it spawned, finding connections to light their way out of the vast emptiness of grief. Okay. Well, it doesn't really sound like, I mean, a lot of her other stuff is pretty much straight-up science fiction. This sounds like maybe mostly mainstream, but perhaps a bit of slipstream. Sounds kind of a sad story, to be honest with you. But anyway, here it is, Mending the Moon by Susan Polwick. And finally, this is the trade paperback version of a book called Anti-Goddess. The author is Kendare Blake, and this is a young adult title. Old gods never die, or so Athena thought, but then the feathers started sprouting beneath her skin, invading her lungs like a strange cancer, and Hermes showed up with a fever eating away his flesh. So much for living a quiet eternity in perpetual health. Desperately seeking the cause of their slow, miserable deaths, Athena and Hermes travel the world, gathering allies and discovering enemies both new and old. Their search leads them to Cassandra, an ordinary girl who was once an extraordinary prophetess, protected and loved by a god. These days, Cassandra doesn't involve herself in the business of gods. In fact, she doesn't even know they exist, but she could be the key in a war that is just beginning. The Goddess War is about to begin. My goodness. Okay, well, here we are. Anti-Goddess, the first book in this young adult series by Kendare Blake. Okay, this is an arc from Pyre, and this looks to be the first book in a new space opera series by Mike Resnick called The Fortress in Orion. Very old school looking. Series is called Dead Enders. The democracy is at war with the alien Tronske coalition. War hero Colonel Nathan Pretorius has a record of success on dangerous behind enemy lines missions that usually leave him in the hospital. Now he's recruited for a near impossible assignment that may well leave him dead. Sounds like they don't really like that guy very much. At the cost of many lives, the democracy has managed to clone and train General Mishkag, one of the Tronske's master strategists. Colonel Pretorius and a hand-picked team must kidnap the real Mishkag if they can, assassinate him if they can't. But no matter which, put the clone in his place where he will misdirect the enemy's forces and funnel vital information to the democracy, those sneaky buggers. Against the odds, Pretorius, along with cyborg Felix Ortega, computer expert Tony Levy, blah 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 blah, must infiltrate the fortress in Orion, accomplish their mission, and escape with their lives. Alrighty then, so good old school, sounds like, shoot 'em up space action stuff. Here we go, The Fortress in Orion by Mike Resnick, and this comes out December 2nd. And here's another package from Prometheus. Alright, so this is the finished copy of a book that I got in ARC form several episodes ago. The author is J.F. Lewis. The title is Grudge Bearer, and it is about Colster. He's the firstborn of the nearly immortal Aern, a race created by the Eldrenai as warrior slaves to defend them from the magic-resistant reptilian Zaur. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so we have like 4 fantasy names in the first sentence of the description here, so this sounds like one of these, get ready for my lore, people. Here we go. Unable to break an oath without breaking their connection to each other, the Aern served the Eldrenai faithfully for thousands of years until the Sundering freed them from both their captivity and their fealty to the Eldrenai. Now the Aern, the plant-like Veil, and the sorceress Eldrenai meet every 100 years for a grand conjunction to renew their tenuous peace, one that, if broken, would force the Aern on the path of committing genocide, unless they forsake Colster's oath of vengeance and be unmade. Okay, so this sounds like that kind of fantasy, right? Very big on its own history, and its cultures, and its races, and, its backstory and all that. But if you like that kind of thing, well, here we go. It's Grudge Bearer by J.F. Lewis, and it is now out from Pyre. Okay, well, here is another finished copy of a Pyre release. This is a book called Resurrection from Mandy Hager. And, once again, I did receive the ARC for this several episodes ago and read up on it. But in any event, this is the third book in a series called Blood of the Lamb. So I guess I can't really get too deeply into a plot synopsis because it's going to be spoilerific, but I'll just say that it is being described as a post-apocalyptic thriller of force and originality. Just the thing for those readers still hungry for dystopias. Apparently there are still some of them out. Readers who love dystopian fiction yet are searching for a unique storyline, says blog critics, should take a chance with Hager's novels. The imperfect protagonist, the low-key romance that sparks life into a dangerous story, and the urgency the characters carry make Hager's The Crossing, which is, I guess, the first book in this series, an addicting and thought-provoking read. So, alrighty then. And finally, we have this big old box from, it says St. Martin's Press, but usually these have Tor books inside them. Okay, well, for those of you who like Terry Goodkind, here's his new book. I know that this one is already out in stores, so it is called Severed Souls. It is, even though I guess the Sword of Truth series officially ended, he is still sort of dragging it along in a new story arc. So here it is. Yes, I know, sometimes I get made fun of because the first couple of books in the Sword of Truth series, I thought were pretty decent. They were bloated and overlong, but they had quite a lot of excitement to them. But very quickly, the series had just plummeted in quite drastically, and I am told that even later volumes in it, which I have not yet read, just get incredibly dreary. Yeah, so I kind of right now these days look at the prospect of getting into a Terry Goodkind novel. Kind of like going in for a root canal, but I know a lot of people still like him, so here we are, Severed Souls. Well, that's it for this week's batch. I hate to seem, This is one of these weeks where I'm not necessarily really jumping up and down in my chair and bouncing around in excitement for anything that turned up, really. But who knows? Maybe there's something here that you think looks particularly interesting and cool, and so if so, let me know in the comments. But in any event, I want to thank you all for joining me. Thank you for continued channel support. If you like watching, please leave a like, share the video with your SFF reading friends, and above all, subscribe. And until I see you guys next time, happy reading.